Come and listen to a story about a man named Jed. He was a poor mountaineer who barely kept his family fed with the modest fruits of the land and his trusty rifle. And then one day, while he was shooting at some food in the deep woods, something incredible happened. Up through the ground come a bubbling crude
Oil, that is.
black gold.
Texas tea.
Well, the first thing you know, old Jed is a millionaire, and his whole life is changed in the blink of an eye. The kinfolk looked at this wondrous fortune and said, "Jed, move away from there." They said that California is the place you ought to be, with its bright sun and endless possibilities. So they loaded up the old truck and removed the family to Beverly
Hills, that is.
a land filled with swimming pools, movie stars, and a brand new way of living for the Beverly Hillbillies. It was not long after they settled into their grand new surroundings that young Jethro de Bodine felt the call of a grand new adventure. He marched into the grand living room wearing a most peculiar outfit, clicking his heels together with immense pride. "Oinks and tally-ho, my liege," he declared, bowing deeply before his uncle. "Sir Junco de Bodine, at thy service." Jed Clampett looked up from his comfortable chair, blinking in sheer astonishment at the sight of his nephew. "What has got into you, boy?" Jed asked, his voice filled with gentle wonder. "And what is that you got into?" Granny, who was sitting nearby with her usual sharp eye, looked at the young man and shook her head. "He is the kind of royal raiment he is going to be wearing over at your castle," she explained, though she did not look entirely convinced herself. Jed stared at them, completely lost. "A what?" he asked. Granny nodded quickly. "Hey, Mr. Drysdale called you? You done inherited the doggone castle over to England." "Go on." "Yeah, one of them grave big rascals with a moat and a drawstring." Jed scratched his head, thinking there must be some kind of mistake. "Are you agreeing with me?" he asked, looking for a voice of reason. Jethro stepped forward, his velvet bloomers rustling with every movement.
"No, sir."
"I was over at the bank when Mr. Drysdale got the word. So I went over to the studio and got us some Queen Elizabeth clothes." Jed looked at the strange velvet and the wide collars. "Queen Elizabeth?" "Yes, sir," Jethro answered with a wide grin. "She is a queen of England. I looked her up in a book. These are the kind of clothes you got to wear around her." Granny leaned forward, narrowing her eyes. "Anybody?" she asked. "Just us royal folks," Jethro said proudly, patting his chest. "This here was worn by Francis Drake." Granny sniffed, inspecting the fabric with a critical gaze. "Well, I hope it looked better on her." Jethro let out a hearty laugh. Francis Drake was a man. A fighting man. A sailor. Granny crossed her arms, completely unimpressed. "Any sailor running around like that better be a fighting man," she remarked dryly. Just at that moment, the beautiful Ellie Mae walked into the room, looking for her family. "Jed, have you seen?" She paused, her eyes widening as she took in the sight of Jethro in his full theatrical glory. "Oh, excuse me, ma'am. I did not know that you—" Jethro drew himself up to his full height, looking down his nose with grand importance. "Jethro. Sir Jethro. Head Bartlett to His Majesty the Earl of Clampton." Granny stood up, waving her hands to set the record straight. "Jed," she said, turning to her son-in-law. "What is this? You do not call him Jed. He is royalty. And you are just a commoner. One of his oaths. You have got to bow and scrape and grumble in front of him. And me too. Because I am his royal nephew." Granny looked at Jethro, her patience wearing thin. "Give me that piece of leather," she demanded, reaching for a strap. Jethro jumped back, looking genuinely shocked. "Do not hit the boy," he pleaded. "Hit me? Her? Well, I would have her thrown in the dungeon like that. Oaths do not run around hitting members of the royal family."
No, sir. No. No."
"Now you have done it. Now you have done it. Wait till the queen hears about this. You done laid your hands on my royal person." Granny stepped toward him with a determined look in her eyes. "If you do not get your royal person into some decent clothes, I am going to lay more than hands on you." Jed, always the peacemaker, raised his hand to calm the waters. "The boy is excited," Jed said softly, understanding his nephew's wild imagination. He got a hold of some story about me inheriting the castle. Let us listen to what he has got to say. Granny sat back down, still huffing. I ain't listened to no nut that runs around in velvet bloomers and wears a woman hat, she declared. Jethro defended his new wardrobe with absolute seriousness. These here is royal raiment. This here is what the queen favors for her nuts. What she sleeps in is her own business. Before the argument could go any further, a familiar voice called out from the doorway. Miss Clousey, I just found him. Jethro turned, his face lighting up. That is you, Jethro? It was Jane Hathaway, accompanied by a rather confused companion. Jethro smiled grandly. Miss Newtonberry, my royal maid. Bend your knee to his highness, next to kin, you Saxon dog. Granny stood up instantly, her pride deeply wounded. What did you call me? She demanded. Jethro shook his head, wondering why she did not understand the rules of the court. When are you going to get it through your peasant head that you ain't got royal blood like us? Jed stepped between them, his voice firm but kind. Now hold on, Jethro. But Uncle Jed, it is true, Jethro insisted. I mean, sire. She is just your mother-in-law. She ain't blood kindier like Ellie and me. But that makes her a vassal. She's got to do our bidding and walk 3 paces behind us. Jed shook his head, a gentle smile on his face. That is nonsense. Surprisingly, Granny smiled, a mischievous glint in her eye.
No.
That is all right, Jed. I do not mind walking behind Jethro. Jethro beamed, thinking he had finally won her over. That is more like it, Maeve, he said, using his grand new name for her. Then when we stretch around the castle, she brings up the rear. Granny reached down, picked up a large frying pan, and gave Jethro a firm tap on his backside. Is that bringing up enough? Or do you want another one? Jethro yelled, jumping away as Ellie Mae laughed. Just then, Milburn Drysdale walked in, full of excitement and business energy. Ellie Maeve, what did Mr. Drysdale say? Oh, he is on his way over. You done inherited yourself a castle.
See?
I told you. Quick, everybody. Let us get into our royal ring. After you, old man. Mr. Drysdale rubbed his hands together, his mind already spinning with visions of grand British estates and banking fortunes. Oh, this is fabulous, the banker exclaimed, looking around the room. Fabulous. I can see it now. The presentation to court, knighted, a seat in the House of Lords, luncheon with the Prime Minister, tea with the Queen. Jane Hathaway looked at the Simple Hill family, feeling a sudden wave of concern. Gee, Mr. Clampett is hardly prepared for such honors, she remarked softly. Mr. Drysdale scoffed, waving his hand.
Not him, me.
I will handle things just like I do here. The Clampetts will stay at the castle. I will be up in London receiving the honors, banking the money. Jane blinked in surprise. What money? Mr. Drysdale smiled broadly. From the tenants who live on the 10,000 acres surrounding the castle. Now, do not get your hopes up too high. If I know Mr. Clampett, he may decide not to go to England at all. Jane looked at him, puzzled. What do you mean? He has got to go, Mr. Drysdale insisted, his ambition shining bright. I have got to go. England is my kind of country. That is where I want to live. Jane sighed. But what if your wife does not want to go? Mr. Drysdale paused, a brief shadow of doubt crossing his face. You think there is a chance? I should not say. Do not get your hopes up. The way of royalty is not the way of the Clampetts. They are plain, simple country people with no desires. At that moment, Jethro burst back into the room, still trying to enforce his new rules of nobility. Dad, this could help, he shouted. Quiet, peasants. The commoners is here. Ellie Mae walked in right behind him, wearing a lovely, flowing dress that looked like it belonged in a fairy tale theater. How do you like my castle dress? She asked, spinning around happily. Ain't it pretty? Jane Hathaway smiled warmly. Beautiful, she said. Yes, but only they do not wear it. Jethro frowned, stomping his foot. Quiet, commoners.
Doggone.
When you hear someone knocking at the door, you're supposed to let down the door string. Granny walked in, looking completely exasperated by the young man's antics. She turned to Jane Hathaway, seeking some modern wisdom.
Tell me something.
How do you housebreak an oath? An oath. I have got her oaths closed and everything. But she won't grovel where shucks. Hey, oath, come on in here. Jethro says if I do not grovel, the Queen is going to throw me in the Tower of London and feed me to the beef eaters. Jane Hathaway let out a polite but exasperated laugh. That is absolutely preposterous, she said. Granny pointed at Jethro triumphantly.
See?
I told you. Jane shook her head quickly. No, well, I can see there is a general misunderstanding about modern-day England, which I shall clarify without further ado. Granny, there is no certain. You are not an oath. And Jethro, even members of the periods no longer have the power to rule the lives of others. And Ellie Mae, these costumes are strictly for pageantry. And there is no desert prison, no torture for those overdrawn at the bank. Mr. Drysdale looked horrified by her honesty. Will you stop putting England down? He pleaded. Granny looked at Jane, her fears melting away. You mean the Queen ain't going to feed me to the beef eaters? Of course not, Jane reassured her with a warm smile. Granny turned on Jethro with a look of pure fury. Why you? Jethro gasped, backing away as Granny brandished her broom. Miss Janine, you have committed high treason against the crown and cited an oath. Your head is going to roll. Granny shook her broom at him. You better hang on to yours, too. Do not you touch me, Jethro shouted, hiding behind a sofa, or the royal executioner will lop off your offended memory. I am the head baller to His Majesty, the Earl of Clampett. Oh, where's the Earl? Granny sniffed the air. He is up in the turret putting on his royal arraignment. Ellie Mae ran to the stairs, calling out to her father. Hey, Pa, we got company. Jethro rushed over, trying to fix her posture. No, not like that. By your leave, sir, 2 vassals beseech your audience. Jed's voice echoed down from the top of the stairs, sounding very uncomfortable. I ain't coming down wearing these fancy duds, he called out. Mr. Drysdale ran to the foot of the stairs, throwing his hands up dramatically. Oh, please, Mr. Clampett, I mean your lordship, grant us a boon. We humbly petition your royal presence. Jethro cheered. Yeah, come on. Thanks, Pa. The door opened slowly, and Jed Clampett stepped out onto the landing. He was wearing a massive, velvet tunic with giant ruffled collars, looking entirely out of his element. Well, all right, Jed said, slowly descending the stairs with a sheepish grin. This wasn't my idea. Hot dog, now you're going to see some class, Jethro shouted, bowing so low his nose nearly touched the carpet. All hail His Majesty, Earl of Clampett. Kneel oaf. Yes, kneel oaf. Mr. Drysdale watched them, then turned back to Jane Hathaway, his frustration boiling over. No, he groaned. Trying to ruin my life, wreck my career, shatter my dream? I get the Clampetts all steamed up to go to England and claim their castle, and you destroy everything with your big mouth. Jane crossed her arms, standing her ground with dignity. Are you raving about all I did was tell the truth? That is what I am raving about, Mr. Drysdale snapped. I know you consider this a great financial opportunity for you and your bank, but think about the Clampetts for a moment. Jane sighed. Okay. That is long enough, Mr. Drysdale said quickly. Now, let us think about me and my bank. Be reasonable. You will be in London in your counting house, but those poor simple hill folk will suddenly find themselves cast adrift in a society so steeped in tradition, so rigid with protocol, they will be completely lost. They won't know what to do or say or who to turn to. Jane smiled gently, knowing exactly what the family needed. They will turn to Lady Jane Hathaway. Who else? Mr. Drysdale paused, looking at her with a newfound respect. Oh, well, if you have someone. Who? Lady Jane Hathaway, she repeated proudly. Mr. Drysdale blinked.
Me?